before all things. In him all things consist. It has pleased the Father that all fullness should dwell in him. And of his fullness we have received grace for grace. Father, we give you praise. We just love you tonight. Thank you for this great house. Thank you for what you have started doing here. Thank you for your servant and his beloved wife and the entire ministry. Lord, as we teach tonight, we declare everyone is blessed, lifted, edified, strengthened, and encouraged through the teaching of the word and by the power of the Spirit. Thank you for the release of the fundamentals of grace, spreading through the many and causing thanksgiving to abound to the glory of God. In Jesus' name we pray. You may be seated. Good evening. Because it's late, I won't do all the pleasantries tonight. We'll leave that to tomorrow and possibly on Wednesday. So I'll just get into the word straight. But I would not fail to appreciate your pastor for this great honor to be here today. Out of all the people that by the grace of God, God has helped us to raise a ministry, your pastor honors me more than every other person. Like I said, I can't really talk much tonight because of time. We've been in traffic for over 1 hour. And I want you to go home because it's a wet night. But believe me, he's such a man of honor. And I appreciate him and his beloved wife. So when I say he honors me more, I'll tell you the story tomorrow. And I think one of the ways God has rewarded him was that he got his wife also through me. Just one act of obedience gave him the wife. I mean, there was a lady that was saying no. Another person said no. He was just receiving nails everywhere. And he was bothered. And so I'll tell you the story tomorrow. Hebrews 12, please, because of time. All right, today is the first night. What I want to do tonight, like I told Pastor Sunday, as the pilots announced the descent into Abuja, the Lord began to speak to me. So I didn't have a note because I wasn't expecting him to speak. So I had to borrow my wife's note. So I came with the note. Usually I don't preach with notes, but because of the significance of this meeting, I had to jot down what the Lord will have us talk about. All right, now let's look at Hebrews 12. Let's read verses 1 and 2. And he says, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And how do we run that race? Looking unto Jesus, who is the author and the finisher of our faith. And what did he do? Who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. There are two tools God has given to us in the scheme of things for alignment. One is faith, and the other is prayer. And there is also another resource God has given to us as a believer that I'm going to really talk about extensively in this meeting. And that is the resource or the capital that is called prophecy. You see, prophecy is the policy of God concerning whatsoever he wants to do in the scheme of things. And what the Holy Spirit is doing and the Word is doing is to align us with prophecy. So there is nothing that is happening today. You know, one of the advantages we have in the scheme of things as believers is that whatsoever is happening now is happening because of prophecy. That there is nothing that is happening that is strange to God or that is, happening because it's just happening. Everything is happening. For instance, don't let me jump ahead of myself. Why do we need to walk by faith? Because this is a faith convention. And I'm going to say certain things that I believe will help us. And we trust God, to create an operational construct so that faith will not just be a concept that people embrace theoretically, that we need to get to a point in which these things become so real, become so vivid. And one of the ways we do that is to listen to what the Spirit is saying and to pay attention to prophecy, like I said, so that you know how to, get into the faith flow. So we look at Abraham and we'll look at Joseph, then I'll stop tonight. Then when we come tomorrow, we'll continue from there by the grace of God. Praise God forevermore. So this is the flow. You see, like I said, the civilization we are part of is called Christ. Christ is not just a person. Christ is not just a name. Christ is a civilization. And because Christ is that civilization, why you need to walk by faith is that there is another civilization that is called Antichrist. That means the default status of anyone that will not walk by faith without being a bad person is to fulfill the other civilization that is called Antichrist. You say you don't need to be a bad person for you to begin to bring forth the possibilities and dimensions of Antichrist. Once your whatever you are doing is not rooted in Christ, there is no other way to explain it. That means, and that's why, when you read the concept of Antichrist in the book of Revelation, a lot of people are expecting a being that is going to have 666 on the forehead and those things. Thank God for John. In 1 John, John began to say that, look, the Antichrist is already here. And the way you know the Antichrist is that every spirit that refuses to confess that Christ has come in the flesh is Antichrist. So he began to tell us that Antichrist is not just a being, it's a concept, it's a mindset. And that mindset is rooted in the fact that, for example, if somebody is here tonight now and all that you are doing is to live for yourself, to live for your family, to make big money, and to enjoy the Abuja, that is the Antichrist mindset. If God is going to help you, the first thing he does is to plug into the civilization of Christ. And if God is going to plug into the civilization of Christ, he must inaugurate a faith project for you. The way you join this civilization is via a faith project. So that means somebody has come to Abuja to enjoy Abuja. But suddenly, you just begin to see some children on the street who are outside of school. You see, the moment some things begin to come into your heart, other than the plan you have that you think is your plan, and that what is bothering the heart of God at a level is now beginning to, find a place, a little place in your heart. That is the beck and call to this civilization. And that is why the Bible says, without faith, it is impossible to please God. So that means what he's saying in English is that without faith, you can't even get God to look in your direction. That means you are not important to God. It does not matter whether you're a billionaire. If the pathway through which you access the billion, there's no faith work there, God is not pleased. That means significantly, you are just a useless billionaire. That billion, as far as God is concerned, is another rich fool that might die tomorrow. Do you understand? So that is why it is important for us to understand how to plug into this civilization that is called Christ. And when God wants to bring you into that civilization, what he's going to do is that the first thing he does is to rock the boat. I remember when Pastor Sunday came, he was an estate agent. That's a part of the story he didn't tell. And he was doing fine. Sincerely, he was doing fine. They were selling land. He even took me to some land to see. And, it looked as if the Abuja dream was becoming a reality. But God is saying this is foolishness. Because I can't see Christ in this. And that Christ in you is the hope of glory. So what faith does is to give you latitude in the scheme of things to bring out the Christ that is in you. Or else that Christ will be subject to the principle of the Antichrist. That means even if you don't do anything and you are a good guy, you love your wife, you love your kids, you want them to attend the best of schools, you just want to enjoy the Abuja dream, you want to go for summer, without doing anything, there's already a resistance in the atmosphere. There's already a force that is saying, yeah, this is how I want it to be. So at times, peace, that you're happy with yourself and you're not troubling anybody, nobody is troubling you, is a manifestation of the Antichrist. Because that is not a peace of God. That peace, you understand it. The peace of God passes understanding. So when you begin to tell yourself that I'm doing fine. So when you begin to tell yourself that I'm doing fine, that is when you should ask yourself that is this not the Antichrist? Because I'm doing fine, not based on the purposes of God and programs of God for your life. That is not how to do fine. So when people begin to say I'm doing fine, he's doing well, Abraham was doing fine. Let's begin from there because I need to quickly move because of time. I'm a man under authority. I'll be subject to the timing of the house. Thank God we have 3 days. What people don't understand about the story of Abraham was that he was not a poor man. He was already doing fine. But you see, God, as far as God is concerned, once you are not on the faith lane, you are not doing fine. So Abraham was not begging God that I need to eat. As a matter of fact, the faith flow took everything away from him. So that means there are certain things now you call riches or wealth or doing fine, that if it's subject to the beam of faith, is nothing. It's just superfluity of nothingness. So what God does to people is that he looks at them, and it's like potentially these people carry the seed of Christ. So in every generation, whenever God sees that the seed of Christ is in you, that means if he should inaugurate a faith project for you, 42 generations down the line, Christ will come through your lineage. He will begin to pay attention to you, and he will begin to look at you to get your attention off what you call riches and success, to inaugurate a faith project that will be diametrically opposed to your understanding now, so that that Christ in you can be deployed. Abraham was just minding his business, doing business and doing fine. And one day God appeared. It's called the God of glory, and he said, get out of your father's house, out of your country, onto a land that I will show you. So that means the way God plugs into this civilization that is called Christ is always a get out word. The launching part of faith is that God will get you out of something. And usually he will get you out of the known to the unknown. Because see, the known is what people celebrate. The unknown is where God is. And why is it that a lot of people, now listen to this, don't get too excited. Why is it that a lot of people, you see, when we're in school, I'm sure Pison can pay attention to this too. Some people are doing fine in God. Suddenly they go to Abuja. Somehow, some things just happened to them, and they don't go to church again. You know why? At the point God is trying to introduce them to the faith flow, it didn't make sense again. So because it doesn't add up, and they've tried, they looked at it. Meanwhile, it is when it doesn't add up and you are looking at it, that is when God is trying to get your attention. Because if the bush is burning and is consumed, the attention of Moses will not be gotten. But the fact that something is happening and you can't put it together, and at times for some people it starts with rent. You just find it difficult to pay rent. And the Lord is saying, that is it. Your attention now. Now this is the time to begin a faith flow. For Abraham, everybody around him, once they marry, 9 months they have children. And somehow he was biologically fit. I mean, how do you know he was biologically fit? I mean, just give him Agar. One night stand. Ishmael came out. So when God is stopping you from the normal flow, it's not that there's something wrong with you. And that is when you begin to discern that a faith walk is inevitable. That means everybody will be getting it, piecemeal. But for you, the story will be different. And if you don't know it's an invitation to the faith flow, the next outlook is to succumb to the principle of the Antichrist and to go on Facebook and start abusing all the men of God because of unmet expectation. So it can also bat resentment. It can also bat apostle that you are trying to, like, what is going on here? And things are not adding up. All your friends that left school about the same time with you, maybe they're in their third job now, they built their houses. You are still the only one living in a rented apartment. You see, you can come to church and say, these pastors, this thing is not making sense again. But meanwhile, like Gideon, God is telling you, when you are saying, where's the God of our fathers? The Lord is saying, this is the man. That if you can keep this thing away from the Midianite with questions in your heart, is an invitation into the faith flow. So that means what the Lord is now telling Abraham is that the child I want you to have, you can't have that child biologically. Because at the level of what I want to do with your life, biology cannot add up. So that means I must subject your biological tendencies to a faith flow. That is the only way you can bat an Isaac. Because if I don't subject it to the faith flow, your genealogy is already Ishmael. And that's exactly what God is saying to everybody. And people find it difficult to understand. Because all that the Lord is saying is that, look, potentially, the best you can do is Ishmael. But to have an Isaac, there must be a faith project. I must inaugurate the faith flow. And you must stay on the faith lane. Even if you don't like what I'm doing, stay there. Because outside of this faith lane, there will be no purple place today. Even if we share the grace here, I think we already have the word. Because all you need to do tonight as you are seated there is do your SWOT analysis. What are your strengths? Your weaknesses? Your opportunities and your threats? Because if you don't project your strengths and your opportunities on the faith lane, your weaknesses and threats will swallow you. Did you hear what Pastor Sunday said? The threat was there that only he would never start. It was a threat. So God had to take him on a faith journey. Because outside of the faith journey, you don't even know your strength. So you are weak. Rich but weak. Let anything happen to that wealth. That's when you know you are weak. So God began to tell Abraham that this is a narrative. And because you are the template, every man of faith will have to follow the same story. That means at some point, the same way biology will fail you, economics will fail them. Physics will fail them. Mathematics will fail them. That means some things are working for some other people. You just look at yourself within the socio-economic space and you are like, what is the issue? Abraham tried. Because at the level of God, it wasn't just about Abraham, it was about Christ. So at the level of God, it's not just about you making it in Abuja. It's about a civilization that is called Christ, that God must plug into. As well as you know the difference between Isaac and Ishmael, the time came. God looked at Abraham. It was time for Moriah. And that season will come in your life too. God said, Abraham, I said, yes. I said, take your son. Your only son. I mean, you want to raise your hand and say, God, you are missing a point. How can you say your only son? The man has two sons. But God is saying a son that is not born of faith is not recognized by me. So at the end of it all, any success, anything you do that is not rooted in the work of faith, God doesn't see it. You see, other people will be celebrating Ishmael. But God is saying you have only one son, your only son. And in case you don't know who the only son is, God mentioned the name Isaac. So Ishmael can be blessed, but God said with Isaac I will establish my covenant. The covenant is the exclusive right to connect with the genealogy of Jesus Christ. That means at the end of it all, the story God is telling with our lives, at the end of it all, in the final analysis, he must bat Christ. Christ is the name of the civilization, or else the Antichrist will take over. For example, what I really want to talk about tonight is to believe God. With somebody here tonight, for God to give us enterprise solutions and technology on the faith lane, to be able to maximize the opportunities is given to us in the scheme of things, especially when it comes to IT, when it comes to e-commerce. Because that is where the spirit is now. That's why I say prophecy is very, very important. So in every generation, there will always be a bubble. That is why we have prophecy by the grace of God to begin to tell us where we are in the scheme of things. So when the Lord was revealing the book of Revelation to John, he called it the book of this prophecy. And at the point in that book, we saw the Roman Empire, how the Roman Empire will fall. The Roman Empire fell. At some point in that book, we saw how the British Empire will emerge and eventually fall. It happened. Many high points in history prophesied in that book. In that same book now, we are in what is called the dot-com bubble. And it will interest you to know that there is no bubble that is about to happen that God doesn't strategically position his people to maximize every wave that is coming. But it must be strictly a faith project. So when the Lord is saying walk by faith, hey, do this, because I don't know how it's going to get to you. But as a seed of Abraham, when it comes to positioning, you are strong. It does not matter where you are in the scheme of things. Once you are a seed of Abraham, you see that faith DNA is in you. And one day, God is going to place a demand on it. I mean, you might just be a banker and you are doing fine, Zenith Bank, GT Bank, and one day the Lord will look at you and he will say, yeah, thank God for you. But that's not the purpose. Do you know how people plug into the other flow? Is that by the time God says, spend 3 years here in banking, and after 3 years, I have another plan for you, and I think I'm speaking prophetically to someone. But because of 500,000 naira every month, it's now 3 years. You don't even want to hear, because now you have children. It was easier to hear when there were no school fees, when you were a bachelor. Now your wife is not working, you have children, and you are thinking of the school fees, and the Lord is saying, one of the reasons why people will not venture into the faith lane or into the faith flow is mammon. And that is a mark of the beast. That without that mark, you cannot buy and sell. That means a system that tries to tell you we are the ones responsible for your buying and selling. We are the ones responsible for your socioeconomic status. The outside of this flow, you can't survive. So how did Joseph start? A prisoner, you can imagine. So when we're talking about faith at this level, operationally, I want to break it down into 3 flows. Number 1, we're talking about the dream. And if you look at Pentecost, when Joel began to prophesy, you see those 3 things there. Number 1, he said, old men shall dream dreams. Young men shall see visions. And as a result of the outpouring of the Spirit upon all flesh, your sons and daughters will prophesy. Now let's link the move of the Spirit to the faith flow so that we can understand. And when we come back tomorrow, we'll deal with the move of the Spirit on its own. Then I think the last night we'll look at Jesus Christ, the author and the finisher of our faith. So Sister Boss is okay now. Number 1, the dream. How you see, what I don't understand about believers is that how do we live without understanding the dream? The dream was what God gave to Abraham. And let me define what a dream is. A dream is a multi-layer, multifaceted, multi-dimensional sighting of the will of God that can never be fulfilled in a lifetime. So when he said old men will dream, it's not talking about age. It's talking about capacity. Because by the time you begin to dream, you are now beginning to sight the will of God at a level that is beyond you. And that was why when Abraham became a dream, God had to tell Abraham what will happen in the 4th generation. And God had to operationalize how the next 400 years after that 4th generation will play out. Because a dream must always outlive the dreamer. So the dream is Christ. The dream is Abrahamic. That means, how do you know you are beginning to get into the faith flow? If you can look at the story of Abraham, and you look at your life today, and somehow you can see, according to Romans 4:13, that you are also walking in the steps of the faith of Abraham. That means today you are living out your own unique version of the story of Abraham. You know, we can read Abraham and say Abraham, but the truth about the matter is what the scripture is trying to tell you and I is that you are the Abraham today. And that is why we are believing God for solutions. Enterprise solutions. So that people will not begin to feel when it comes to all these spiritual things, this spiritual capital, this faith flow is for pastors. And that is why God said, prophecy will be democratized. It is your sons and daughters that will be prophesying. That means God is saying in this new wave, as you venture into the faith lane, you won't need to look for a prophet. That was why the moment Abraham started that faith journey, God said, the man is a prophet. Remember Abimelech? God said, let him pray for you. And you begin to wonder, what prophecy did Abraham give? Other than the Lord will provide himself a lamb. But how many of you know that's one of the greatest prophecies? Because the reason why that brother I was talking about earlier is still in that bank is because he doesn't know the Lord will provide himself a lamb. Because on your faith journey up Moriah, there will be a missing link. Even Isaac knew there was a missing link. Isaac said, where's the lamb? And Abraham gave the greatest prophecy. He said, where we are going is called Jehovah Jireh. At the mount of the Lord it shall be seen. Jehovah Jireh is not the name of God. It's the name of a place in God. When you get to that place, provision is already waiting at the other side of the spectrum. All that the Lord is just saying is that go up the mountain, the faith way. But that you have to get to the mountain and start looking. In fact, Abraham said, Lord, provide himself a lamb. God had to provide a matured lamb. It's called a ram. So when they were expecting ram came. Because you are dealing with the one that can do exceedingly, abundantly, above. But the Lord is saying the catch is faith lane. The catch is that understand the dream, that you are the Abraham today. So let's call the Abraham in the Bible, Abraham version 1.0. You are the version 2.0. Because the reason why you are here today is that you are a seed of Abraham. That means God is saying the only way to get the attention of God fully on heart here is to be a seed of Abraham. That means the sequence of growth that was in Abraham is being reproduced in you today. You are a seed. It's a definite sequence of growth, capable of reproducing after his own kind. So that means your own kind is Abraham. And if your kind is Abraham, you are the kind God can trust with Christ. You are the kind God can tell what will happen in your fourth generation. You are the kind God can tell this is how 400 years is going to be afterward. That means God is saying, true, because of your involvement, I just need a man so that I can shape history. You know, we'll soon get to Joseph. I'm conscious of the time. So the dream. The first thing God does for us on the faith flow is to understand the dream. So the dream is to have Abraham everywhere. It's to be Abrahamic. Christ understood that dream. That was why from the word go, he had to come as a seed of Abraham. I mean, you couldn't come any other way and fulfill purpose here. That means the operating system for fulfilling purpose on the earth is to first of all understand that dream. That means God is saying through your seed, all the families of the earth will be blessed. But that seed cannot be biological. That seed must be a seed that is on the faith lane. And because it's on the faith lane, it's no longer a biological seed. It's not a faith seed. So it is that faith seed that is capable of producing Isaac. And in Isaac will produce Jacob, will produce Joseph. And eventually we get to Christ. Because what God is saying that I cannot preserve a biological seed in 42 generations. But once that biological seed is on the faith lane, it's activated, it's upgraded to a dimension that within the next 42 generations is still very active until it gets to Christ. So look at your business as that seed, whatever is in your hand now. The Lord is saying there's a limit to which I can use that. Outside of a definite faith walk, it will just remain biological, physical, or economical. But there's something the faith dimension does to it. It gives an expression on the face of the earth that is rare. So old men will dream dreams. So if you look at where you are now, are you dreaming? Because outside of an Holy Spirit inspired dream, you can't even get into the faith flow. Number two, he said young men will see what? Vision. What is a vision? I said dream is multi-layered, multi-level sighting of the will of God. A vision is like, let's say dream is like many quadrants, let's say 10 quadrants. What you do in vision is that you now take a stake in a dream and it must be fulfilled in a lifetime. Do you understand? You know, dream is what? Multi-dimensional, multi-layered. So a visionary young man, what does he do? He looks at the dream and by the Spirit locates his own stake. That means God is saying, the dream is big, it's multi-dimensional, but for this one dimension of the dream to be fulfilled, that is why I'm giving you a vision. Holy Hill is a vision, but it's part of a bigger dream. So what Pastor Sunday has done is that he has looked at the dream. And having understood the dream, he now looked at a particular stake in the dream. I'm going to be a stakeholder here. That for as long as I'm here, this part of the dream will never die. Because in a lifetime, it will be fulfilled. That means if the Holy Spirit is going to help you, I'm going to leave this Antichrist system and not plug into it, which is the dot-com bubble that we are part of now. Because it's already prophesied. You see it in the book of Revelation, the beast, you know, when people see beast and they are scared. But essentially it's just talking about artificial intelligence and it's talking about the brutal capability of IT. That was a 4th century peasant trying to describe a 21st century technology. So he was using the word, one beast arose, and if you look at IT, you understand the bestial nature of IT. But that's not, but I'm just trying to show us where we are in the scheme of things, because if you don't understand the dream, how do you understand your vision? And more importantly, he now said your sons and daughters will prophesy. So we have the dream, we have the vision. The most important of the three is prophecy. That means if a vision is the heart of the dream, you now understand where you are playing the scheme of things and you're a stakeholder. Then the prophecy is a present lead on how to carry out the vision. That means if my vision is, for example, to have a church in Abuja, what kind of church? That means the Holy Spirit must now begin to tell me in today's language how I must fulfill that vision. Now you understand. Now let's break it down. Joseph understood the dream perfectly. That the dream was that God prophesied that in the 4th generation they are going to go to Egypt. Now listen. And God told Abraham that the nation I'm taking them to, he didn't mention the name of the nation, he just left a gap there. But God said by the time they are coming out, they are going to come out with great wealth. That stake was held by Joseph. So from the time God spoke those words, he had in mind Joseph for some reasons. Just like as you are seated here, there are certain things in the dream. You are the visioner. And because you are the visioner, at 17, you're already wearing designer suit. God looked at Joseph. God said, you don't understand. You cannot fulfill the dream this way. Imagine Joseph at 17 wearing a coat of many colors. At 17, he was wearing Gucci, and God looked at him. God said, you know, by the time I want to lock people into the vision, I have a way of firstly distinguishing them. They will have what is called early success in life. Things will look as if, you know, because outside of the Father's love and a secure environment like that, you can't even dream. So somehow the Father will just be good towards you. While others are wearing rags, he will give you a coat of many colors. But the reason why he's giving you the coat of many colors is because blood is coming. So he looked at Joseph. He said, you are a stakeholder. And how we're going to start this program, this faith flow, is strange. You will have to go to Egypt. The vehicle we're going to use is slavery. So you begin to look at it. Well, what on earth did Joseph do wrong? Other than the fact that he was dreaming. But did God tell them they are going to go to a nation? Yes. Did God say they are going to come out with great wealth? Yes. So that means the stake of Joseph in the scheme of things is to go to that strange nation and go and create wealth there. Because it is the wealth Joseph created they will take out. Fair deal. That means God is saying, all of you are enjoying now. We are wearing go to many colors, but God can look down history lane. And God said, there's coming a time in history, a critical 7 years, there will be abundance. But after that abundance, there's going to be famine. And if I don't do anything about this famine, that famine can wipe out the seed of Abraham. So one of us must be planted ahead. In Psalm 105, it's called, He sent a man before them. I'm just trying to operationalize how faith works. So when God begins to deal with you to come into the faith flow, don't begin like Joseph. See, Joseph had two choices. After you get to Egypt, get to the dungeon, you can get there and say, this God thing doesn't make sense. You know, like so many of our friends on Facebook now, get angry, resent people who say, with God of Abraham, to hell with the God of Abraham. Why am I in this prison? Why am I here? Or Joseph now sees that this is the divine strategy for me not to miss my stake in the dream. It's called faith. So what you call crisis, what you call disappointments are invitations to the faith flow. Because that is the only way God can get your attention. So when some of these things begin to happen, people will be like, oh God. So you can imagine Joseph. Joseph now goes into that prison with an attitude. But Joseph understood, and that is what you must understand, people, as we begin to round up tonight, positioning. Wherever you find yourself as a child of God, is correct positioning. Maximize the place. God is too faithful that He will allow you to be positionally irrelevant. Even in the dungeon, it's a position. Because that was how segmentation started for Joseph. You know, you have positioning. Strong segmentation started for Joseph. Because from Potiphar's house to the prison to when he met the baker and the butler, God began to show Joseph that your segmentation is to serve king's people. Potiphar was a servant of Pharaoh. All the prisoners were prisoners of Pharaoh. He was working with Pharaoh's dad. The comptroller general of the prison fell in love with him, made him the ruler of the prison. The moment he noted the butler and the baker dreamt, you know, they didn't tell Joseph, but Joseph understood that, look, I'm segmented here. Even though this is dungeon, whenever anyone that is attached to the king is having a problem, that is where I must serve. Because that is what is going to differentiate me in the days to come. So he understood positioning, segmentation, and differentiation accurately. So I want to ask you, where are you? Somebody positioning you in a place and you are collecting 25,000 naira in a month. And because of that, you are mad. You are sad. You see, that position is the tool God is going to use to launch you into the faith flow. But if you don't have the right attitude, you will not even see that the butler's countenance has fallen. That's the problem. So that means every day, as people are in that situation, the possibilities and dimensions of the future are walking past people every day. But because they are sad, because they are regretting, they are like, on a good day. Imagine yourself, because on a good day, I should not be here. Me, that's 17. I was already wearing a coat of many colors. Now I'm 23. Only God knows if I'm back home what I'll be wearing now. Maybe I'll be wearing a coat of gold. You see, you don't understand the dream. So because of that, you are not visionary. And because of that, you are not hearing what the Holy Spirit is saying. So, before you know it, Brother Joseph, why are you so much in a hurry to leave the position God has put you for strategic leveraging? So, You talk to the butler, he talks to the king to release you, you are released. So what happens? Imagine Joseph was released prematurely. He goes back home. Number one, you go back home to start fighting. Because the kind of fight that will start, you guys wanted to kill me. So me, no. Even the father will be like, you mean? I will curse all of you. So, but God kept him there. Until such a time, he could forgive them. Until such a time, he could look at them in the face and say, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. It was actually God that sent me ahead of you to preserve you. So that means he was beginning to understand the dream. That being sold into slavery was not punishment. It was God that sent him ahead. Because if he was not sold to slavery, all of them would die. So it was in that dungeon that the strategy for wealth creation came to Joseph. Because we are believing God tonight for enterprise solutions and for technology. Imagine a prisoner and he's now beginning to think, okay, yeah, I understand the prophecy that is abundance. What was it that Joseph knew that most people did not know? Joseph on earth at that time was the only person that knew how long the abundance would last and how long the famine will last. Because once you're on the faith flow, one of the things God does is to reveal secrets to you. He said, how can I do this thing and not tell Abraham? I must tell Abraham. That means the predeterminate counsel of God will now become what you have. It's called your sons and daughters will prophesy. You don't need to go out there to start looking for prophets to tell you. Right there, God will begin to give you prophetic agitations. So when the year of abundance started or came, those 7 years, people are marrying second wives. People are buying land. Now listen. See where faith can be foolish at times. People are doing what? People are buying land because we've been told, just like you have been told in Abuja here, land is the thing. You can't go wrong with land. You see, you need to go back to Egypt. It's been cited and referenced within our history that people went wrong with land. So if the Lord is not asking you to buy land, don't buy land. That's not how to start this economy of faith. Be patient. Where is the wind blowing first? You can imagine some people were investing in the money market, so they were multiplying money, and things were looking good. But God told Joseph, God said, Joseph, you are the only one on earth with this secret. And the secret is that the next bubble is going to be corn bubble. You don't understand? The next bubble is going to be grain bubble. That means God looked at Joseph and said, because you're on the faith lane now, access this secret. The most important thing in another 14 years will be grain. Whoever is controlling the grain value chain will become the richest person. And whatever country has the largest storage of grain will emerge the world power. So while people are buying land, buying houses, and doing those things, Joseph was storing grain. At the time Joseph started, grain was not valuable. Land was more valuable than grain. Because we are talking to our IT guys here. What is the next significant bubble? Because where we are in prophecy now is that we're in that place now that your debit card is the 666 the Bible is talking about. That means the Bible is saying your name is going to be changed to a number. It's talking about the beginning of the digital age. And right before our eyes, see, that's the beautiful thing about prophecy. God first of all said, before you begin to prophesy, before you begin to see vision and dreams, I'm firstly going to pour it upon all flesh. That means God is saying everybody without knowing will be moving towards prophecy. Did anybody know on earth today that the digital age is in the book of Revelation? One day, people just woke up and said, we don't want cash again, we want card. And today, if you call your bank, they said, tell us the first digit. Your name is not important again. Digit has replaced your name. And that's why, before people begin to get into religious postulations, John said, this is the mind of wisdom. He said, before you interpret this 666, wisdom. It was like Sila because he knew people will misunderstand it. Because what people are waiting for is one day somebody will come. 666 is already in your pocket. It's called credit card. It's debit card. In fact, our last trip to the US, when we were renting a car, because we usually rent a car to drive around. So when we got to the airport to rent a car, I even wanted to give them cash. The lady said, no, she said, we don't take cash. You have to, and they didn't even want to take my Nigeria debit card. Thank God I have a US debit card. So now said, oh no, that we don't even want foreign debit card, that it has to be a US debit card. But I have a Wells Fargo debit card, so I just gave it to them. And you know what? They don't even look at it. You know how they do it? They just swipe. That's 666. Because religious people say, no, I'm not 666. 666 is not my, but please, that's why John said wisdom. He said that number is a number of a man. He said, let him that read, first of all, ask for wisdom. That means he's talking about the digital age. That number will now represent people. And this is just the beginning. So in that wave, the Lord himself revealed it to us ahead of time. Maybe almost 2,000 years ahead of time. That it will happen. But because there's outpouring upon all flesh, that was why Pharaoh dreamt. You see, Pharaoh is like all flesh. He was not part of the dream. But you see, whenever people of faith are standing, people around them will also be beneficiaries. Because the outpouring is upon all flesh. He was now Pharaoh, representing all flesh, who picked the dream. Did Pharaoh know that the dream he dreamt was connected to Abraham? And he too could have gotten religious about it because that was the manifestation of 666 in their own time. How can robust cattle, ill-fated cattle, those one swallow robust one, they don't get bigger. Like Access Bank swallow Intercontinental Bank, something like that. I said something like that. I didn't say it's like that or something like that. And Pharaoh woke up and God had now to say, and that is why we must begin to pray for our leaders. Why did God use Pharaoh? He was a leader whose dream bothered him. He was a leader. Not only was he bothered by his dream, he was looking for solution. And he was a leader that it didn't matter where the solution came from. He was willing. So no room for tribalism. No room for nepotism. Even the solution came from the dungeon. And Pharaoh is saying, whether it's black cat or it's white cat, once it can kill rat, it's a good cat. That is why, you see, fighting Buhari and fighting the leaders is not wise. Because there are certain things God cannot do, but through them. So instead of fighting them, because, you see, that was a good Pharaoh. Another Pharaoh arose, didn't even know Joseph. And he started another cycle again, part of prophecy again. Part of the faith flow by default, without even knowing. So the Lord told Joseph that this is what's going to happen in another 14 years. Start storing grain. It didn't make sense. You see, that's why faith instructions, they don't make sense. All the IT guys, they have received grace for you tonight. Because we're in the .com bubble now, to know exactly in social enterprise and in technology. Because not only did God give Joseph the enterprise solution, he also gave him the technology. When I was in final year in the university, we did a course at National Store Product Research Institute of Nigeria in Spray. It was part of our final year, 500 level courses, so we went there. And after the man took us around, we went to all the research institutes in Ibadan. It was part of the, and I said, sir, is there any technology anywhere on earth or in Nigeria today that can store grain for 14 years? The man said, it doesn't exist. I said, but it's in the Bible. He said, that's Bible. How did God give Joseph that solution and give him the technology to back it up? That means he stored grain beyond 14 years. And suddenly the year of famine came. Because we're in dot-com bubble now. Every bubble will also burst. Oh, you don't understand? So that means what God is now doing by the Spirit to get people on the faith lane is to position them. So they already know where this is going. And they're preparing themselves. That is the only reason why God wants to get you into the faith flow. Because you see, whatever people call success, whatever people call, it's coming to nothing. And what is going to rise eventually is a civilization that is called Christ. And anyone that is an heir of that civilization, as a player in that civilization, will always rise with it. Imagine how many people must have laughed at Joseph when he was storing grain and they were investing in land. In fact, they show him the real estate reports, and real estate is good. Only for one day. The first thing people brought was money. The Bible says, and when money failed, because somebody has said, well, land is not even my own. It's capital market, money market. If you know how to trade, Bitcoin, you see. At times, when God is giving us examples, they don't look like examples. Because people in the days of Joseph also did not know what they were doing. So today also, at times people begin to act in a particular way. They don't know. It's a bad example. They brought money. The Bible says money failed. Could you imagine an economy where money failed? After money, they brought their land. You can imagine a time came, people were exchanging land for grain. So on the faith lane, there's creation of value. Exceptional one at that. Because you see, what we have seen so far in our generation, and thank God for all of them, all the billionaires in dollars, in naira, in Nigeria, anywhere, we've seen people through the order system rose to create value and to create wealth. But God is saying, is there no balm in Gilead? But you see, but with God, the problem is this. Anything that has to do with God must begin on the faith lane. So, you see, faith is like you are telling God, I'm ready for you. You can trust me. Because if at 77, over 70, he can ask you to come out of your father's house, and you come out of your kindred, out of your nation. At 99, he asks you to circumcise. All those things he asked Abraham to do, and eventually you met Melchizedek, you gave 10% of all. God is saying, this is my body on the earth. I can trust this guy. And God himself said it. He said, how can I hide what I'm doing for Abraham? Knowing that Abraham will surely become a great nation. And he will command his household to keep the way of the Lord so that they can do justice and righteousness on the earth. God himself said it. So before we say too much, so that it doesn't, I don't like saying too much. One thing we're saying, somebody said you have said too much already. One thing I'm saying is that you might be the Joseph we are looking for. You are a stakeholder in a dream, backed with the resource of prophecy. Are you going to disappoint God? You see, when it started, it looked like, what is going on here? But eventually, look at how Joseph was positioned. Heavily segmented and powerfully differentiated. In Psalm 105, let's round up. It wasn't just about grain. Joseph was teaching senators in Egypt wisdom. Have you read it before? That means when he did a strategic grain reserve and the Senate of Egypt saw that it worked, they set up a committee. They had to do an hearing. And when they did the hearing and they looked at what was coming out of the brain of this child, they said, from now henceforth, every Monday morning, you'll be coming here to teach us wisdom. He was binding priests at his pleasure. That means all the ruling class in Egypt. Joseph was the one telling none of them what to do. That was how the civilization of Christ came into Egypt without Egypt knowing. So the next civilization of Christ is not by going to your office and holding fellowship at noontime. In fact, you are exposing yourself already. It is by adding value. That even the Senate, you see, there's a level to which you add value. And that's why what the Holy Spirit told me, like I told Pastor Sunday, I had to write it down, is that tonight especially, and for those who are listening, for IT guys, those who are doing enterprise solution thing and technology thing, that same grace that came on Joseph is upon the house. So that people will know where trends are going, where things are going. And you can accurately position yourself like Zacchaeus, climbing the sycamore tree. And you know why Zacchaeus climbed that sycamore tree? Jesus explained later. He said he also is a seed of Abraham. So it was Abraham in him that said this is the right positioning. How can Fowler, FRS boss, be climbing tree? Zacchaeus was the commissioner for tax in his days. He was the CEO of Federal Inland Revenue Service, and he had to climb. Because at times, the way of faith, it looks foolish, isn't it? But Jesus got there and he said, come down. That means Jesus is saying, the Father already told me you are going to be there. Positioning. May God find you where you are supposed to be. So that means, imagine Joseph had left prison. So that means what must be clear to you as a child of God, that why am I in this bank? Why am I in this company? Why am I here? This is my positioning. Is it outdated? Because if it is outdated, it will be difficult for God to reach you. Imagine they said, go and bring that guy from the prison. And they say, oh, he left yesterday. As a matter of fact, he has reconciled with his father. What a waste of 13 years. And you know what will now happen? 14 years later, Joseph will now come cap in hand too, to come and beg for grain like his brothers. Imagine where he was supposed to be a player, he's now a beggar. How many IT people do we have in the house tonight? Or enterprise developers, business people. You see, we must by the Spirit. So that means God is saying, in your own interest, you have to walk by faith. And before we say too many things, I don't say too many things. That walk of faith is going to start with an instruction. For some of us here, you have been struggling with that instruction. That is the greatest tool God has given to you. But for some of us, tonight, that instruction is going to come. And don't forget how it's going to sound. Get out of your father's house. I cannot define your father's house for you, but the Holy Spirit will define it. But that you will not come out of something. And you want to be part of this faith flow? It's not possible. You will come out of something significant, but you get into something more significant. That it won't cost you something, and your flesh will not be screaming, and your wife will not misunderstand you. But she will understand you later. It will cost you everything. And that's why the Bible says these things are written as examples unto us. Please, can you get on the keyboard? We have examples. I have 3 minutes more. So in 3 minutes, let me tell you what I've been trying to say. And number one, you don't look like Abraham if there's no faith project in your life. Jesus looked at them. He said, if you are Abraham's seed, do the works of Abraham. We don't just confess I'm a seed of Abraham. It's called the theory of faith. There's no room for theory of faith in the body. Practically, you must Abrahamize. It's not like I'm a seed of Abraham. I'm a seed of Abraham. It's theory of faith. Let's see the faith walk. Let's see our faith project. For some of you, is this Holy Hill Church? The Lord is saying this church is your project. And there's somebody also here, you don't want to come here tonight also. God brought you and he's saying this is your church. His story has created a force field. For somebody also tonight, Lord is saying, look, you are hungry. You're like, why? In Abuja, I wouldn't listen to Pastor. I'm going to say, stay here. Because we are Joseph. So we don't do the theory of faith. It's practical. And it will cost you everything. So in this faith flow, because what I just want to do this first night is to first of all establish that flow. Then we can later start looking at how to walk by faith and all those things, what you do on the faith lane. But that you'll get anything significant done on the face of the outside of faith lane. When the Bible says it is impossible to please God, that means it is not possible. I'm saying it in English. It's not possible. But the moment you get on that faith lane, it's as if all God's attention is now on you. And When God's attention is on you, that is when all hell will break loose. Hell is okay if you are fine. But the day you want to walk by faith, all hell will break loose. Because that is when hell is affected. You are like, somebody is escaping this system again. And that is why things are difficult. And that's why, let me warn you, the moment you get into that flow, things will slow down. Your friends will do better than you. While Joseph was in prison for 13 years, his brothers were making money every day. But 1 minute of Joseph outside of prison, he was what? More than the entire generation put together. The ways of God. So that means God is saying there's a level of wealth hanging upon this generation that cannot be assessed any other way. It won't be Harvard Business School. Good as those things are. I'm an MBA student too. It won't be PhD. Good as those things are. But it will be an operational construct of faith at the instance of the ministry of the Spirit. Practically demonstrated through socio-economic interventions of the Spirit that will come through the instructions God will give to us beginning from tonight. For some of you, it's as simple as, and I just said that in my spirit. Okay, they gave me 5 minutes more, thank you. Because I'm a man under authority. I just said that in my spirit. It will be, start treating your house, a gate man, the right way. See, that gate man is a destiny link for you. But you don't even greet him, just drive out, because it's gate man. Gate man. For some people, that's just the adjustment you need to make, how you treat people. So one thing I've been saying is that hear what the Spirit is saying. And that is Galatians 3, the blessing of Abraham, that we might receive the promise of the Spirit through faith. That means the ability to integrate the dealings of the Spirit on the faith lane is what unlocks what is called the blessing of Abraham. The Bible did not say blessings. Blessing is just one. That means today is still that one blessing, that one faith flow. And that you yourself, by the grace of God, you have been integrated into the faith family. And God can look at you and say, the same way I came through Abraham biologically, I want to come into IT through you. I want to come into law, medicine, oil and gas. Because my birthing has only happened biologically. That is Christ. It must also happen strategically. The same way somebody had to stay on the faith lane so that I could be born biologically. It's also the same way somebody must be on the faith lane so that I can be born in the economy of Nigeria. The same way Joseph had to stay on the faith lane that made Egypt a world power. By assessing the secret of God. Starting by faith. You don't think it's a massive faith project to build storage for 14 years. What if it fails? And hear the word of the Lord. This next level we are moving to. The resources you need is waiting for you there. Joseph did not carry any money out of prison. The money was in the system. And that is what the Lord is saying, that if you do it my way, and you respect the faith project I'm inaugurating for you, for somebody it's as simple as, look at your pastor, and that's another thing. Let me help somebody. God can say, start partnering with him every month. You see, I won't say that in our church. I will say it there. Because it's for somebody. You see, all these pastors are interested in our money. When you see people talk like that, they don't understand the faith flow. But there must be something you are doing by faith. It's just you are living by faith. You can't live any other way. I could see it in your eyes that you are really enlightened tonight. You got something tonight? Can we stand on our feet and begin to pray in the Spirit? Let's begin to pray in the Spirit. So we can seal this. Can we? I need people to lift up their hands and begin to pray. Just for 2 minutes. The 2 remaining minutes. Malila pragedi. Yabrokodina nasoprekede. Embra du frede. Ezebregenina mama sobrushti. Ezobrakadama sobrikinine sudabo. And the Kobolo Brukutina Masudaba. In Jesus' name. And finally, before I step up, when you start, Don't think it's going to be a 1 year project. It might be 25 years. Ask Abraham. But in those 25 years, you have God's attention fully in whatever you are doing. You'll be God's man, doing God's work in the right place. Because what that unlocks for you is what is called the righteousness of faith. We'll pick it up from there tomorrow. Thank you very much.